Okay, everyone. Hello. Before we get started, I was just talking with my colleague, Tim, about how this is sort of like, for me, I've been going to CALI for a long time, this is sort of like being a law professor. When you first get hired, you have to teach torts and contracts and all those classes. And then after a few years and you get tenure, you can teach like contemporary issues in 1950s Florida, and civil reform history movement of women who live in an apartment or something like that. And so when you first start talking at CALI, you do sessions on student printing and wireless. And then after a few years, you get to do stuff like law school mobility. But as Tim pointed out to me, we also talk about student printing. So I don't know if I've quite gotten to those far-reaching ideals. But anyway, my name is Tom Ryan. I'm the Director of Information Technology. It's all good. I like it. I like it a lot. Actually, I'm going to have a rule, which is that if you're going to do that, you have to give it to me. Because believe it or not, we had the great honor last year to host CALI at our school in Camden. And the one thing I kept telling my kids was, I'll bring you home a monkey. And believe it or not, when the conference was all over, I didn't have any. And so my kids, of course, being 8 and 11, didn't give, well, I won't say that. But anyway, you understand. But anyway, I'm the Director of Information Technology at Rutgers University School of Law in Camden, New Jersey. There are 2 law schools. One is in Newark and one is in Camden. I'm joined by my colleague, Tim DiVito, who is our website services manager. We're here today to talk about law school mobility. And briefly, I don't think of it. If you came here to see about making your website work on a mobile device, we'll show you some things that we've done to do that. However, what we're really talking about is integrating students' mobile devices into our building, using their mobile device to interact with our building, to interact with our services, as well as using it to look at our website and do stuff like that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim, who's going to take you through a few things, and then we're going to kind of tag team back and forth. So I hope you enjoyed. If you have questions at any point, please feel free to stop us. You can throw monkeys in our general direction. I would take them, not give them back to you, but we hope you enjoy. And if you have questions, stop us. All right, Tim.
So first thing when we talk about mobility, we're talking about the students. Meet the typical law student. Back when we first started deploying wireless B, for those of you that jumped on the bandwagon when it first came out, we had one law student, so we set up our classrooms so that every law student had one laptop, maybe. In the beginning it was like every 20th law student had a laptop. But nowadays every law student has at least a laptop. So for a 35-person classroom, you plan on 35, 40 devices in a system, in a room, not a big deal. Well, as we go forward, our students now have all sorts of mobile devices. Smartphones, iPods, iPads, Kindles, all of these kinds of things that all basically are left on Wi-Fi on the whole time and are all muddying up your Wi-Fi spectrums in your classrooms as soon as you have a student that walks in the building. So your one typical law student really needs to consume 4 students worth of wireless capacity inside of your classrooms. So a normal 35-person classroom is really dealing with capacity for 140 devices. Now, all of the students aren't going to have 4 devices yet, but I bet you in the next 3 or 4 years we're going to. I know I've registered students that have at least 3, and that's a lot, because we register a lot of the mobile devices we'll get to in a second. So, when we originally spec'd the Wi-Fi in our building, our 100-person classroom had 2 50-capacity Wi-Fi devices, and it was great. Everything worked great, but the more people are using these devices, the more we have to keep expanding our capacity to be able to handle a lot of these issues. And again, it's not even the students might not even be connecting to your Wi-Fi network, but they didn't turn it off when they walked in the building. So the phone is trying to get a hold of that network after the first time that it's connected. So, especially if you're thinking of doing some things with your wireless network and upgrading and things, make sure you're as way over capacity as you can possibly deal with, because you'll start to hit on these issues, because they all have a lot of crap. Okay, so at Rutgers, we are dealing a lot with the mobile devices that they get. And so one of the things that we deal with first is we ask our students to register their devices with us. Now, that isn't something that we mandate or anything, but our wireless login allows for one simultaneous login at a time. So when a student is going to use their iPod to do something real quick, and then they try to open their laptop, they have to go back to their iPhone or iPod or whatever and log out before they can log in on the other thing. So as an incentive, so to make that as an incentive, we let them register the device with us. So then we know who they are, we know what phone device they have, and we can do things. We don't really do it now, but we could limit bandwidth on mobile devices if we wanted to.
Bandwidth.
We limit bandwidth on mobile devices.
So we have different roles.
We could send them, once a student logs in, we could send them to different web pages for mobile versions if we want to. Once we register the device, it's actually always logged in, so we don't have to worry about them having to pull up the little blue socket login screen or whatever. And then that gives us some additional options. Now that they've logged in, we know who they are, we know what phone they're using. We don't have to prompt them for a login anymore. We can send them right to mobile-enabled websites if we want to. We can take their login information and send them to other course-related things, which I'll get to in a little while. And it really just helps us kind of move people over into that mobile space. Same thing with printing, too, which Tom will get to in a minute. So, again, what we're dealing with is really making sure that if you have a desktop computer, that's your login. Every time you log in, they're not desktop, laptop. They print from their laptops. They do all sorts of things. But as we get more and more mobile devices, registering them helps us kind of keep track of what's going on, being able to log who's in what where, and it also helps them because they don't have to log in 800 billion different times. So, some student printing.
Okay, so one of the things that we want to do is, I'm sure, well, I watched them all. I don't know if everyone else does, but did anyone watch Steve Jobs' latest keynote at WWDC? Anyone familiar with that? Anyway, he said, he made a reference and along the lines of that they're demoting the PC, right? And that they're considering, and part of it has to do with iOS 5, for those of you that follow that. And in terms of, for those of you who have iPhones, and I'm just curious, how many people in here have an iPhone? Right? Yeah, okay, so maybe it's 50-50. But anyway, for those of you that have iPhones, you realize that in order to use that device now, you have to connect it to your computer, right? You have to connect it to your machine to get software updates, to sync it with iTunes, to when you first purchase it and you want to start using it, you need to sync it with your computer. With iOS 5, that is all gone, right? You get, for those of you that aren't familiar with this, I have iOS 5 on my device. You get over-the-air software updates. You have over-the-air wireless syncing with your iTunes. You have over-the-air Delta, the software updates are Delta-based. You have over-the-air registration with your phone when you first get it. And so basically he said, we're going to take the PC and move it right down to this level playing field with all these other devices. And so we want to be able to do that with our phones, right? We want you to be able to come in and use your phone or your iPad, which is, because I'm looking around, I see a lot of you are using iPads, right? So let's say you're a student and you have an iPad and you want to print, and you have Faris. How do you do that, right? Or you have Peak Counter. You have any one of those solutions. As a student, you can't really survive with your iPad alone. You need something else if you want to print or do other things like that. And so one of the things that we did is we said, well, that's not acceptable for us. We want to erase that boundary, that software boundary, and allow our wireless users of our mobile devices to use their device the same way they use their computer. And so what we got was this. We have RULaw AirPrint. So when students are on our network with their wireless device, right? Now I have both. I use PrintBot. Somebody told me about it the other day. We're primarily focusing on, there's a different product we were looking at, which was what we were recommending, which was a paid app. I think PrintBot is relatively new. But using modifications to our back end, and that's important. It requires no changes on the student's iPad or iPhone. When they are on our wireless network and they go to print, they see RE-Law AirPrint. Now, when you go and you hit print on this device, you see the first time you select it, it'll show up automatically. Student sees that, they can select copies, they can whether or not they want to do double-sided or not. They hit print, whether it's on their iPad or their iPhone. It goes out to our system. We query the blue socket, we get their identity, we submit the job to Faris. Is it as simple as that? No. It's a lot more complex, but they don't see any of that. They just see that it shows up on their device and they can print it. We thought that there'd be a couple users of this. Right? We rolled this out maybe 3 months ago. We have about 10 to 15 print jobs a day come over AirPrint, which I thought was pretty impressive. So what happens is, for those we use Faris, that's our system. They have their phone, they hit print, they walk up to our release station, they swipe their card, they see their job, they release it. It all works perfectly. For the Android devices, there's also the other ancillary benefit of this, which is that the Bonjour advertising service that you use to let the iPhone devices, the iPrint devices, know about this device also causes it to pre-populate on our Mac OS devices. I through a minor tweak. So we actually get automatic printing. So there's no installation of anything on the Mac. When I was doing my initial testing and I was going like this, I had my Mac out and I was like, oh, it showed up automatically here. Right, that's pretty cool too. And then on the Android side of it, you'd have to use something that allowed you to connect to Wi-Fi printers, but they use the same type of technology so that our Android users could use PrintBot, which is a free application to print from their tablets or from anything else. And so they don't have to use Cloud Print, which of course would not work in our enterprise setup. So this allows our students, and not just our students, our faculty. So when they print, what happens is for when the job comes into our back end, it determines if they're a faculty, staff, or student. If they're a student, it sends it to the Faris queue, and then we have our Faris queue set up so that you print into one queue and you can walk up to any of our release stations and release at that station. But if it's a faculty or staff member, in their directory settings, they can define their AirPrint printer, and so they can send it to so if you're a faculty member and you do it, it's going to come out to whatever printer you specify. So if you use the printer in the hallway over here, you can send it automatically to a hallway printer if you use it over here. And that would work either with the iOS device or the Android device. So this was something that took about a day to do, and it's actually seen a lot of use. And so we're quite proud with that, of how that worked out, enabling another way for our mobile device users to use their device as a full computer and not feel any different than a regular full laptop user. So, any questions? Okay.
So it was Bonjour that you used to advertise this for the iPhones?
Actually, to make this work, right, you have to publish a special domain onto your DNS. Then you have to configure your DNS server to advertise your IPP printer in a special way. And then we had to modify it and write a custom CUPS backend that would query the blue socket when the job came in to get the identity of the user to turn around and then resubmit it to Faris. So like I said, there's no complexity to the student, but it's actually a pretty complex backend.
You found that on Faris' website or something like that, the instructions on how to...
No. It's sort of taking 5 different pieces of information and gluing them all together. So, and it's funny because we are, one of the things that Tim talked about before was how we register our devices and we use them. The university has moved to Cloud Connect, right? I think it's called Cloud Connect, to do like automatic provisioning of devices where you can get the 802.1x. And so we have not done that yet. We're talking about doing it with them. And the reason why is because they don't support anything like this on their network. They're like, you mean they can print from their iPhones? I'm like, yes. And they're like, wow. Yeah, we don't do that. So it's, we're not quite there yet with that, but the idea would be eventually you could just come in, and we're going to actually talk about all these other cool things we can do with your mobile devices besides just printing, because we've got a lot of other things that we're cooking. Any other questions about this before we move on? All right, what's next? Okay, mobile video, right? So for those of you that do video, how many of you and I totally expect almost all of you to put your hands up. How many of you have streaming video available on your website? How many of you stream video to iOS, Android, and Blackberry? One guy. Well,
Good man.
We're going to raise our hand as well. So two. So basically what we do is, for those of you that came to Rutgers, Camden, know we do a lot with video. So this was just like a little thing that we're going to show you on the document camera here, is that, because we want it to be like hands-on, right? We're not just going to talk. We're going to show you stuff. So I have here on my phone some emails that we get when we watch videos. So let's pick one from, here is evidence, right? So see, I have this email that comes on my device. You probably won't be able to read it. That's okay. But in the email, there's a link here. And I'm not on Wi-Fi. I'm on 3G. Just want to point that out. And so it's going to come up, right? And it says here on the top, please wait for video to load, and then press the play icon. You can see it came up pretty quick. I'm going to hit that. And oh, stop it. This is 3G, right? I know you're all surfing right now on your phones to prevent my demonstration from working.
Steve Jobs would be very disappointed.
Right. I would say that the time that this takes to load depends on the length of the video. So if the video is like 20 minutes long or half an hour long, it loads in about a second. If the video is 2 hours long, which I believe this one is, it takes a little bit longer. There it goes. All right. So we've got, this is actually an hour and 54 minutes. And I don't know. So here's this video, right? So this is the professor going on, you can watch it. And we also have, let's go, where do you want to go? Right there. And
giving just compensation.
All right. So our video works on any mobile device. So that's just a quick demonstration about that. And Tim, we can go back to the laptop.
How did you get it to work on any mobile device?
Okay, so how we do this, right? We actually encode all of our video in H.264, right? Which is a pretty good codec to use if you want it to be able to be shown on different devices. We encode it 1 megabit stream, one single file. We serve it up via various means to deliver it to the client. So we don't have 17 copies of the file for different devices. We have one copy of the file, and then we deliver it based on what device you're using to access it. So that was an example of mobile video. Are you going now? Are you talking about?
You can do something else, right?
QR codes. We're really big on QR codes, right? Who in here is using QR codes? All right. So who loves them? Come on. Gotta love them, right? Yeah, they're fun stuff.
What are you guys using them for?
Room schedules, they put them on the door, you put your phone up and Steve goes.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. That is neat. We have 20-inch displays outside of our classrooms to let you know who's got the room. But one thing that we are going to do is we're now rolling out integrating QR codes onto all of our displays, providing information so that you can register for the room, you can do other things. And I'm actually going to show you, when Tim gets through his talk about QR codes, something that we're doing with exams and QR codes, which I think is pretty cool because I like to talk about them. But Tim's going to go now. He's going to tell you about.
Okay. So one of the things, last week, and this really, I think last week when we found this out, has kind of guided us into, validation for how we should keep going with this. We had a group of first-year students come in, summer students who are just entering law school. So we always ask them, like, oh, how many of you have PCs? And, the last couple of years it's been like 4 people. And then how many people have Macs? And it's like, whoosh, everybody. But what happened this year is I asked, that doesn't say anything. Nothing good, at least. I just pulled it off of Google. You might not want to.
It says brownbook.net.
There you go.
There you go. And a bunch of other stuff.
So I asked how many people had smartphones, and usually it's just like 3 or 4 or 5. It was 75% of the 100 students that I had come in had smartphones, iPhones, Android devices, whatnot. So, that was really like a big, all right, we were using these things a little bit before, but now we're like, all right, this is the year to really deal with this. So one of the things we want to do is start taking these and being able to put information on the students' devices. So either give them data that they are looking for while they're in the building somewhere, or get them into a web page where they can do things. So one of the things we had, if you came last year to Rutgers, we have these digital signage. We have classroom displays at every classroom. The problem with that in QR codes is that they're 7.5 feet high, and they kind of they're angled down. So taking your phone and kind of getting it in the right spot to scan a QR code, not so good. So we're focusing right now on our lobby displays. So weather, date, time. This, had I taken it, not at 3 o'clock this morning, would have announcements and news and information. But what we're really talking about is this little picture here. So, and again, because it's the summertime, there's not really a lot of news going around. But this is a rotating image. The images we pull from anyone that wants to send us an announcement. It's our news system. It controls the data on the home page of our website. It controls the displays, the lobby displays, the classroom displays. Does a whole bunch of stuff. So when there's no news, we just have a couple of nice, pretty law school rotating images. So we take data from a lot of people. We take images from students, student organizations, and from faculty and staff that are hosting events and things. We actually chose PowerPoint as the method for getting images. We did that, and I know someone's like, can't you just upload a picture? No. The whole point is that we wanted to make it as ridiculously easy as possible to use. And if you gave out information on, well, you needed to have an image that is this many pixels high and this many pixels wide at this resolution, so it would always fit inside of the display at the same place, it would make the student or the faculty member either go insane or just not care and send you an image that you then had to put in the right resolution before it got put on the displays.
Wait. I just would like to interrupt that. How many of you have faculty members that use PowerPoint and really all it is they type 20 lines of 10-point text and show it on the screen? The best is when I walk by one of the monitors and I see someone who has uploaded that as their ad, and it's this tiny little text all, and then I'm like, Anyway, sorry.
There's no accounting for taste, right? So that's why we use PowerPoint. Tom actually was the one that said, hey, why don't we do this? I was a horrible supporter of this in the beginning, but it really allows any faculty member, and if they really have a student made some time and made a poster together that they printed out or whatever, you could just take that image, drag it into PowerPoint, save it, and then it's the same thing. So it's really versatile to be able to put files into PowerPoint. So we just, no matter what's there, we just take an image of the first slide, convert it to a JPEG, so it's the exact same resolution in every version of PowerPoint, and then we just take that and put it on the displays. And then they rotate through as many as we have, and then they get approved, and they get seen by the the dean's office and all that kind of stuff.
I would like to point out that during the student government or student bar association elections, there's a lot of really cool and funny looking pictures, and maybe we could bring them.
Because
you
thank
should
you
see
for
the
bringing
students
that
that
up.
are partying and saying I'm a guy. Come, it'll be fun with me.
Well, one of the things in the new building that the dean said right off the bat is we're getting rid of all these posters, so students aren't allowed to tape anything to walls anymore. So it's actually kind of cool because the dean said that, and they started having helium balloons and taping posters to helium balloons and leaving them around the building. So now we have hundreds of balloons up in the ceiling and we can't get them. But it's really, this is how now the students communicate, and these images are available all over the place and whatnot. So a couple of tools that we use to do this. jQuery and this thing called the Ultimate Fade-In Slide Show. Free, open source, uses jQuery. Allows you to pick any kind of resolution you want, rotate it through. It's what we use on our homepage to rotate through the image gallery that we have there. You can add text, you can move things around, you can flip them and transition them, and it's all free and open source, and it's wonderful. And then I use a library called PHP QRCode on SourceForge, which is just a C library that somebody made available in PHP. And that gives me the ability to either read QR codes, which I don't do, but Tom does, and he'll show you, and then print them out. And I can choose the size of the QR code, which you'll see in a second matters, as well as how the error correction level that you put on the code, and and then it automatically, based on how much data you have, will size it and make it appropriately. Okay, so this is kind of a random test example that I did. I did this again last night when, as everyone I'm sure knew by 11:30 last night, the internet in the hotel was horrible. So I couldn't really get too fancy with some of the data I wanted to pull, but I was able to pull up. It took a few minutes, the academic calendar. So this is just a very generic slide. Now, the software that I have that adds the QR codes puts it live on the displays at home, so I had to make something that wouldn't look stupid for the next couple of days. But yeah, so this is just a generic PowerPoint slide. Just slap the logo on it, put some dates on it. 5 minutes, it's done. What I didn't want to do is redo the whole display system from the beginning. One of the major reasons is that our campus is in the process of building a completely new website, new design, new color scheme, new everything. And when that's finished, I'm sure we'll have to do some kind of a refresh. And then I would include that in any kind of a display system so that all of our imaging matches. So there would be no point in me recoding the lobby displays when I'm going to have to do it again in a few months or a year anyway. So I wanted to be able to add the QR codes without having to redo anything. Now the ancillary benefit as well is that if anyone else is posting images anywhere, this is a really easy way of adding QR codes without completely and totally redoing the whole way that you add images. So I just take the PowerPoint, I add some pixels at the bottom, and just slap the QR code right at the bottom. It's kind of hard to tell in here, but this gray, that does say something. This gray here is actually the background of our lobby displays. So I just add gray border on the back and everything. I tried a couple of things, putting it on the right, putting it in the center. That looks good for me for now, based on how our displays look. But you can throw it anywhere in the thing.
Hey, look, a squirrel!
Anyway, so being able to take the code and throw it in really doesn't look that intrusive. It's also kind of small, but it works pretty well on the monitors we have, so I'm pretty happy with it. Now, that code goes back to the news system, the publicly facing news page that we have on the website. So our goal is to make sure that to keep using that one news interface for all the data we have. We put that on our home page, we put that on the lobby displays, it goes everywhere. That page, I'm also in the process of working so we can, on the news system, it has like Facebook and Twitter like buttons, all that kind of stuff. It also is hopefully soon going to have, if we know that you're coming from a mobile device, a little click link to add it to your calendar on your device. Now the problem is Apple's API for doing that is non-existent. So I could very easily do it for Android devices, but iPads and iPhones, unfortunately, you can't have a link that adds something to your calendar, at least very easily.
I think that's changing in iOS 5.
I hope so. So anyway, so this is a really easy way of adding it, just taking the image you have, adding some pixels, throwing it on the bottom, without having to redo your whole system. This was 6 hours of code to be able to put these up. Anyway, so it goes to the main news page for that item. We also can track that now and see how many people came in through the QR code compared to just came in regularly. That device, that page, can then also do other things. So we have a registration system for events. So if you're a student and you're going to sign up for something, I could, that news page could then forward into, hey, I know who you are because we've registered your mobile device. So do you want to register for, obviously we're not going to register for a calendar, but do you want to register for this event that we have this advertisement for? You just click yes, and automatically sends you in. We know who you are, we know where you registered from, and you're registered, and you're done. You don't have to go to a form, sign in, do all this kind of stuff. It's a button, and it's done. So all kinds of stuff you can start doing with this. What other things that we're going to start doing? putting a little QR code, like the gentleman said, at a room, being able to do a whole bunch of things when you get there. Just because we have the display and you know what's going on now, maybe you want to reserve the room tomorrow. So putting a QR code right near where the braille is on the little sign that tells you what room it's in, just to be able to go in and reserve the room tomorrow or next week or whatever, see who's in the room, see what's going on. What I'd love to do, although there's some issues with it, putting at that QR code, once you get to the reservation page, have a record button, right? Because all of our classrooms have cameras that we can pretty much record on and off within a few seconds. So go to the QR code, hit the record button. We know who you are. We know who to send the video to. You just walk in, do whatever you're going to do in the room, record it. We have a lot of students that record themselves doing interviews, and then those interviews get sent to their faculty, their professors for different courses. So we really think that is the area we want to go. Other things, printed materials, being able to, if you're going to hand somebody a printed material and it's just an advertisement, it's kind of silly to put your website QR code or something. But if it's an advertisement for an event and you say, I want to register for this event, put the event QR code, scan it, and you're registered and you're done. There's not a lot of things. Tom's going to show you some other printed things we want to deal with.
Yes, but first, since you brought up the room, I want to show that. So here is, as soon as this thing wakes up. So this is the email that went to the student who used one of our...
Takes a second.
Yeah, it takes a second. There we go. So, of course, I don't expect to be able to read this, but this just says it's a recording of one of our group study rooms. The reason why I'm not a fan of having the ability for you to start and stop it and controls. For those of you that took the tour of our building last time, we have push-button controls that light up in the individual group study rooms to do recording. But so our idea here would be that the student would be able to register, go up to the room. If it saw that nobody was in there, they could just scan the QR code, and it would come up, mobile screen. Yes, you want the room. They could just click 2 buttons, and they can make the room reservation, walk in, push the button, and start recording. The benefit would be that what the students do is things like this. This is a 13-minute long video, so unlike the last one that took a few seconds to load, now this one will load much faster, because either that or it would like to prove me wrong. But I guess that all depends on the speed of the 3G. But you can recall how quickly it took to load the 2-hour-long video as I turn up my ringer. And 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. Okay, it's proving me wrong. And I never like when that happens. But anyway, squirrel. There it goes, right? Hey. So obviously it's much faster. You saw how quickly that loaded. Of course, I'm not holding it in the right spot. But you all get the idea, right? Which is that this is just a simple video. That was done in a clinic interview room. Actually, that was a group study room. But our clinic interview rooms work the same way. And then what I have to do is show laptop on projector. Some of the other things that we do with QR codes is we wait for the digital scaler to show us this. Printed materials, right? Who prints out exams and gives them to faculty members to grade? Right. Somebody does it, right? Right? How do your faculties grade exams? Are they doing it online yet? No, they're doing it via printed material. Do they write comments on that printed material? How do you get that back to students? Maybe individual faculty member, right? How many of you store, those exams for a while? Store them in a room somewhere, right? Because you want to hold on to them because you're afraid you're going to get sued or whatever. I'd like to take a second to thank Rich McHugh for lending me his little dongle, his big dongle. Sorry, Rich.
His VGA adapter.
His VGA adapter. So as we wait for it to show up here it goes. Okay. Now this is going to be a little interesting, but because I have a MacBook Air and I'm not doing a presentation thing, so it's going to be kind of painful. Please bear with me here. But so what we do is we have all of our exams in our exam administrator, and so faculty can print them themselves. Or they can ask a staff member to print them, for them, whatever they're doing. Just so let's go say we want to see alternative dispute resolution, and we got all these exams here. We're going to click on this one, and we're going to wait. And here we go. Here's our exam. Anything look kind of familiar there? So here's the exam. We can pick all these different things. And look what's right up there in the corner. All of our exams print now with a QR code on them. Right? So we give them to the professor. They have a QR code in the top right and bottom left corner in case there's like a little rip or a little tear. Professor goes along, makes up, grades the exam, does all their grading, writes comments on it, whatever. They might lose a page here, misplace it. Things kind of get out of order because, however they like to do their work. They give us back that big stack of papers, and they're all like, mixed together, piled together. We say no problem. We go, we put it in our scanner, we send it into our system, and our scanner scans every single page and gets that little QR code, looks up that QR code in the system, and it finds out what exam number it is, what exam it's for, what page number it is, and then it neatly shuffles everything right back in and combines, exam 7469 and does everything. So look, we're going to go right here. And then I'm going to go here and show you that he's going to show me. Sorry, I hate to go back and forth, but you won't be able to see this, but trust me, it's there. See that little text that's right here? Right here? This text, I don't know if you can read it or not. There you go, you can read that. See that? Look at that. Tells me it's page 1, 55901017469 for spring 2011. Does all that, recombines all that. They can send it right back to the students. Students can view their exams. We can store them electronically. We don't have to have any printed copies. Anytime we can go back in, we can pull it all out and get all the pages out and everything else. I really like QR codes. Sorry. You can do a lot of really neat stuff with them. So we're using QR codes for those types of things, not just for using mobile devices, but we found that they were really an easy way for us to put information onto a printed material, and then if we were to scan that back in using open source scanning libraries to be able to automatically detect and read that information right off of that page file and give that information back to the student and store it in our student records information. So I'm going to unplug this and we're going to go back to the other laptop. Well, some want them to give us back to it, and some don't. But the problem is that we store things that are graded. So we were trying to make it easier so that we don't have blue books or printed exams or whatever we have that we're keeping those comments because we keep them for years. I'm sure other people raise their hands, they do it too. So the idea was to move it all electronically and to do it in such a way that we could easily import it and store it. And it works great, 100%. We load it massive amounts of pages into it. So now we're back.
Yes, question.
So do you get if they did lose a page, is there an exception report that kicks out saying, Tom?
Oh yes, of course. Oh yeah, of course it
missing?
does, because it knows that this exam is 10 pages long, right? And when it comes back, it knows page 4 is missing. It tells us that page 4 is missing. So because the QR codes are unique for each page, right? And they're generated in the fly when we do the conversion to PDF. So we use there's a lot of complicated tools again to get to, but the gist of it is that we use something called HTML doc, which is an open source converter of HTML to PDF that we had to make modifications to support custom loading of images on each page, like a unique image for each page that we added in to do that. And then we generate the QR codes, and then we put it all together when we do the conversion. So where else? Okay, I'm not responsible for this next slide. That's all I'm saying.
I like the picture.
Okay. I did not do that. I don't know anything about that, and I am not scanning that with my phone. If any of you want to, I won't tell anyone. Okay.
Anyway.
So, other online tools for mobile devices. Online attendance taking, right? How many of you do online attendance taking? How do you take attendance? Paper?
Do you have
Wow.
to go
Okay.
to paper now?
So let me ask you this. How many of them do you think say, hey, Johnny, I'm going to miss class today. Can you just mark me as being there on that form? You think that happens? Right? So we were like, oh, we'll make it online because students won't share passwords, right? But They do sometimes. We know they do. But you know what they don't generally share? They don't share their cell phones. They always have their cell phone on them. Well, I mean, come on, let's admit it. We know where you are in the building with your cell phone. We know it's your cell phone. We know you're in class. We know you're not in class. We're going to import all that information automatically into our attendance records. So when a student walks into a classroom, we're going to know your mobile device is connected with AP XYZ, and that AP is registered for this room, and you're supposed to be there. You're in class automatically. So you won't have to sign paper. You won't have to do anything. When you walk in, we're going to know you're there. Automatic attendance taken. You don't need to do anything, right? And then we'll generate reports and say, we know right now, hey, we know who the 25% of people are that don't have cell phones. We'll tell them you still have to go in, do it via the web. Everybody else will do it automatically for you.
You know it's one particular student because you've registered that device.
Right, because they're a registered device. Yes, absolutely. That's why we know it, right? Because every unique device has a MAC address. We know who you are. You sign into our network, boom, we've just attached your device with you. We know it. When you walk into a room, we get status reports. Even if you never log in, we still know you're in there and that you're associated with that device. So their phones. These are their cell phones. They're never turned off. They might put them on vibrate. They might do something else, but the phones aren't. They're not turning their phones off, and they're not lending them to somebody else. They're in their pocket. So the idea here is we're going to make it easier to take attendance.
I don't know. They might buy a throwdown phone or Kmart or something.
And again, if they do that, the answer will be you have to manually go into the system and register your attendance. But the idea here is that, from what I said from the very beginning, our goal is to integrate your mobile device into our environment. It's not just to say you can watch videos and you can look at our webpage and you can have like 6 little button icons. That's very neat, don't get me wrong. I think that's important, everyone does that. But we're going to make that device so compelling for the students to use in the building that they're going to feel there's this value added in us doing that.
You foresee any issue with, like, if you have a lot of access points in your building, if somebody's walking down the hall and they associate with the access point at the end of the hall and it's still within range when they get in the classroom and
right.
not be
yes,
associated with
absolutely.
one and register with another?
But right now, our attendance method, the way we take attendance online, is are you in the building? Yes or no? Like, are you here today? So we're not taking a step back, in terms of that. Are you really here? We're taking a step forward. And of course, you're right. I mean, you could be associated with an access point that's 100 feet away. And that's a caveat that the faculty know now, right? That someone could say they're there, they're not really there. But we're just going to auto do that for you so that you don't have to take that step if you don't want to. Because I'm sure that the faculty, most of them, they don't like taking attendance. When we went online, they didn't have to hand out paper forms. They love that. It's one less thing that the bureaucracy that they have to deal with, and they like it. And so this is, again, a way to help the students, to give the students a benefit and say, you don't have to trouble yourselves, and we can meet ABA requirements by taking attendance. We're just doing it in an automatic way. Because our dean staff meeting, they didn't like my RFID in the neck idea, so we scratched that, and we're looking for other things. So, of course, other things you can do with a mobile device, right, is clickers, right? They can replace your clickers, so you don't have to buy them, and presentation tools. We're looking at. I'm a big believer in mobile display technologies, and so we've invested in the light show devices, which now use what's it called, Mobi Show, which is an open source thing. It works nice on Android, not so much on iOS, but we're hoping that that we're going to look into doing some stuff with the little Apple TV boxes, so that or looking at the open source stuff that you're seeing for AirShow, so that people can use their iPad, walk around wirelessly and project to the projector, right? And without having to connect physically with a wire or anything like that. And so we're trying, again, this is about integrating the devices so that if you had, Keynote or whatever the version, I only had pages and numbers on this, but if you had that and you were a student and you wanted to be like in our group study room, or if you were in a classroom, you could present right from that onto the projector, onto the TV, whatever our device is going to be. You wouldn't have to bring your computer. And if you had a document and someone said, can I get a printout of that? You could say, sure, you can print it, give them out. You could send it to them as a file. You could do whatever you want. I mean, basically, we're turning this into a full-fledged device, right? We're doing exactly what Steve Jobs talked about, which is that, and I think that's what we're seeing more of. I'm sure that most of you have laptops. If you could give them a way to use their iPad or their iPhone or Android tablet or whatever it is as a full-fledged computer to do everything else, the laptops would be gone, right? They'd only bring them when they had to load that stupid exam software on it or whatever they wanted to call it, right? The rest of the time, they'd be using their mobile device. They'd be carrying one device that got better battery life, right, than most of them and everything else. They'd really like that.
So we know that we have some cool things that we are doing, but we want to make sure to spend some time on what everyone else is doing, because quite frankly, we'd love to steal a whole bunch of other ideas on how to use all of these technologies. So anyone, please let us know, what else you're doing. Anything.
Or should we just go past this uncomfortable bit to the next slide? There is no next slide. There is no next slide. Okay, so there is no next slide. So I guess that means that we are 45 minutes? Wow! People might think I was actually prepared. Okay. Any other questions for us?
All right, quick question. Since these are self-selected consumer devices,
Right.
do you worry about a new OS like Windows or WebOS or Blackberry playbooks coming in and selling places?
This is a good question. So what we've done is we've tried to build on standards, right? So let me give you an example of a standard. How many of you have a mobile device, right? I asked before, for specifically iOS, who has a smartphone? How many of you can access your work's network drive from your smartphone? Right? See that? Everyone look around, right? Not so many. So what we've done is we've built everything on open standards. So when we're talking about presenting from your mobile device, right, what we're saying is that, now this is running iOS 5 for those of you that have seen that. Ready? Look at that. Does that look like Android? Right? But we won't talk about that. But anyway, the WebDAV support is what we're using. So here is my network folder, right, through WebDAV, which is an open standard. For those of you that are not familiar with it. You're not showing me. He broke it on me. Okay, so here we go. Right? Is it up? So this is Goodreader. It actually works on iOS 5. Pages, like when I was running iOS 4, Pages has, any of you use Pages on your mobile device or iPad? Anything? No one uses Pages or Numbers or Keynote? It has built-in WebDAV support right in that program. And so you can connect, we use WebDAV, we provide a WebDAV interface to our users. And so if they're in Keynote, they can open that PowerPoint that they worked on their desktop right from within Keynote and load it. But on iOS 5 right now, it's, like I said, it's broken because it's a beta. So this is just going to load. I'm going to just bring up very quickly a document and show you. So let's do this. Let's scroll down here. I have no ideas. Here's a transfer letter, right? This is from 2001. And we're going to download that and download file here. Right? Okay. So now we go back to close that and web downloads. And there's my file, right? There's my transfer letter. And I'm going to go click on it. And there's my transfer letter, right? And then I can click on the thing here. And I can open in Pages, and now if it worked in Pages, okay, it doesn't like my 10-year-old file. Go figure. But anyway, here's the document. I don't know if you can see it, but iOS being a beta, but the benefit here is that with our open platform or open development, faculty can interact directly with their network files on our server, open it, edit it, make changes, present automatically. So sort of the goal here is that a faculty member could be in their office working on their presentation, could go down to the classroom. They're always carrying their phone, right? They could go into the classroom, they could open that file right up from their phone and present it wirelessly to the projector and never have to touch the computer. And so that's where we're going, and we're there now. We're just fine-tuning. But going back more specifically to the point, we obviously stay on top of all of the emerging tech. I mean, I would imagine this kind of demonstrates that we like to stay on the forefront. So we buy new technology when it comes out. We have iPads, we have Android devices. We make sure our services that we offer to students work on them. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Android versions of ExamSoft before long so that students can take it on their tablets. Any other questions?
How are you handling security issues on some of these things? Faculty traditionally have stored secured documents or what should be secured private files on the network, and if you're allowing them to bring them up on cell phones, how are you dealing with that?
Well, I mean, right, I guess there's two concerns there, right? One is, are we encrypting that data as we transmit it? And the answer, of course, is obviously yes. The second part is goes to an issue that people have now and people have been talking about is how do you protect that mobile client? And really, the answer is, how many of you had a faculty member tell you they lost their cell phone? They lost their thumb drive, right? I mean, they're going to do whatever they're going to want to do anyway. So the answer is to educate them and say, obviously, you keep your username and password secure. We recommend that you put a password on this and everything else. But obviously, being a law school and not a medical school, we don't have the same worries, right? Overall, not yet anyway. Any other questions?
Yeah, Tom, how are you doing the video to the iOS device? Is that RTMP or?
No,
HTTP?
it uses we run Apache as our web server, and if you search for like H.264 module or something, I think like that, there's a freeware module that you can implement which does the streaming automatically to the client.
Does that put a local file on that device?
No, it streams.
Okay.
Streamed.
And
Yeah, that's why you can see I could fast scrub to the end of the 2-hour video.
So what was the name of that tool again?
I forget the exact name of it, but if you search for H.264 at like streaming module or something like that, you'll see there's like only really this one place. I mean, we could look it up. Tim could spend 2 seconds and tell you what it is, but it works pretty well. Obviously, you saw. So, any other questions? Well, I hope we inspired you to go out and do some of these things. Thank you all very much for coming. Next year I'll be talking about religion and law in the 12th century, okay, and student printing. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Wow. Should I turn this off? I don't know if I should turn this off. I don't really know. I'm just going to close it. Somebody else worry about it. And then I have to give Rich back his thing.